as they build up the power of the East, they are dismantling the power of the West, financially in this case, but in all other areas as well. And when I spoke earlier about politicians who represent the cult, not the people of the country they're supposed to represent, well, the sanctions against Russia is a wonderful example, because they weren't sanctions on Russia at all. They were sanctions on the West. I mean, it's all a game. And it's to kid ourselves that there are two sides fighting each other, when actually there's one side fighting you.
David Icke, a former BBC sports commentator, recently discussed a significant shift involving Saudi Arabia and the US dollar. He explained that for the past 50 years, the US and Saudi Arabia had a deal that gave rise to the petrodollar. This arrangement meant that countries earned US dollars by selling oil, making the dollar incredibly important and benefiting the US economy in various ways, like keeping borrowing costs low. However, there are reports that this long-standing agreement may have ended. If true, Icke and other experts believe it could spell trouble for the US economy. Without the need to hold on to dollars for oil trade, other countries might start offloading their large reserves of US dollars, potentially flooding the market and triggering record inflation and other economic challenges. Stay until the end of the video to hear David Icke explain why and how the government and big corporations may be aiming to take control of your money. Before we continue with the rest of the video, do check out daily 5-minute crypto newsletter with all the latest crypto and Bitcoin news. It's a fantastic analysis of on-chain crypto data and breakdowns, and the best part is it's absolutely free. They'll cover expert predictions, breakdowns of on-chain crypto data, and any breaking news you need to know, all in a nutshell. Click the first link in the description and enter your email to join over 50,000 others in becoming a better crypto investor right now.
We are looking at the West being dismantled from within by those politicians that are put there by the global cult. I mean, you can see aspects of it with the World Economic Forum and its young leaders that turn up later to be the leaders of Western countries and non-Western countries too. But that's what's going on. You know, these people like Starmer, that is likely to come in, very likely to come in as barring a miracle, as Prime Minister of Britain. He's a cult representative. The people around Biden, not Biden, isn't what he's doing, but the people around Biden, they're representing the cult. The people around Trump, despite what is his natural constituency, which is not wanting this stuff, the people immediately around him will be those that are representing the cult. So it's not about national governments. It's about that which is controlling national governments. And as you rightly say, Saudi Arabia has had its orders. They're going to drop the dollar, and they drop the dollar, and the implications are going to be enormous. Well, the banks, as I said earlier, are holding on for dear life. You've got an economy. Again, I'll use the same analogy I've used many, many times. The global economy, not least the American economy, is like those cartoon characters who are chasing each other. And they're chasing each other across the land. And they're so concentrating on chasing each other, they don't realize when they run off the edge of a cliff. But they keep going forward, even though there's fresh air underneath them. And then eventually one of them looks down, sees what the situation is, and they all fall into the ravine. And that's the global economy. It's all based on confidence. I mean, what is a dollar worth, right? It's a piece of paper with some printing on it. So it's worth nothing. What its value comes from is what people perceive its value to be. So it's all a mind game. It's all a confidence trick. And if you believe that it's worth a lot of money, you will then invest in it, and you'll buy dollars. If you think it's on its arse, then that's the last thing you're going to do is buy dollars. So the whole thing comes down. And so given that the banking system is already in a perilous state, not least in America, not only in America either, then what is this going to do? It's going to exacerbate that situation. I think you're going to see, as the weeks and months unfold, you're going to see a lot more banks go bust. Smaller banks to start with, maybe, but then the bigger ones start. And so the situation with inflation, the situation with price increases from a falling dollar. I mean, the more the dollar loses value, the less it can buy, and the more dollars you're going to need to buy what you bought before. It's called inflation. So the implications and the potential consequences, Jay, of this decision are, it's not possible to overstate them. And this is the start, you see. It's a big step because it's Saudi Arabia and the oil and all the rest of it. But you're going to see more and more people doing this, more and more countries doing this. And it's just going to go on worsening because as they build up the power of the East, they are dismantling the power of the West, financially in this case, but in all other areas as well. And when I spoke earlier about politicians who represent the cult, not the people of the country they're supposed to represent, well, the sanctions against Russia is a wonderful example because they weren't sanctions on Russia at all. They were sanctions on the West. It was the sanctions that pushed up energy prices and helped to fuel inflation. And all it did from a Russian point of view is move them closer to China. People like China and India started filling the gap that the West was filling before in terms of buying Russian energy and other goods. And it's basically fused that BRICS alliance even more. And I remember in that interview you mentioned with Putin and Tucker Carlson, that Putin said at one point, "I don't understand. They put sanctions on Russia, but it's hurting the West. I don't understand." Well, you bloody do understand, Mr. Putin, because you know exactly why that was done, because you're in on it as well. Let's not kid ourselves. This is a global situation. I mean, okay, the cult is going to control all these different countries, but it's not going to control a country as pivotal as Russia. Are you having a laugh? It's a game. It's a perceptual game. And so he well knew that the sanctions against Russia were actually sanctions on the West. And it's all brought this about. And, you know, more sanctions that have now been announced has led to this situation where the Russian stock market has stopped the trading with euros and dollars. I mean, it's all a game. And it's to kid ourselves that there are two sides fighting each other when actually there's one side fighting you. Like I've said so many times, know the outcome and you'll see the journey. The outcome is a AI perceptually controlled population that is further controlled by a digital currency, which allows them to take fines and anything they want from your bank account at will. And an AI destroyed job market, which leaves people at the mercy of a guaranteed income, a universal guaranteed income, which would be a pittance. And if you don't accept it, then there will be consequences. And in terms of, well, how are you going to put food on the table then? And if you want to speak out when the universal basic income comes in, we allow it, then you'll lose your universal basic income because you can't challenge the government and get it at the same time. This is where it's going. Now, the bulwark to that is personal savings and access to an independent income outside of the system's control. So, for instance, a small business operating within the system, although it's subject to the rules of the system, but it's to an extent, it's an independent small business where the people running the business are as best as they can deciding what happens. They want rid of those. So you had the COVID period, which did for so many of those small businesses. More and more rules and regulations are coming in, plus the banking situation, to make it more and more difficult for independent small businesses, medium businesses to function, because they want rid of them. And that leaves us with the savings. So if you've got a build-up of savings, then you have a certain independence from the system and a certain more greater choice in what you do and what you don't do. Now, if the bail-ins are activated, what is that going to do? It's going to take away the savings of people and make you dependent on a universal basic income. This is all connected. And if you don't see the connections, then you see everything as in and of itself, well, you completely lose the plot, because this is all connected. Dot connected, actually. It's a challenge. I mean, they say that a certain amount of money is guaranteed if a bank goes down. What they did in Cyprus, if you remember, was it 2011, something like that?
Yeah.
Is that they took money above a certain amount. And so a lot of Russian investors in Cyprus banks lost everything, because anything above that amount they took, and that's what they planned. But it's a thing that is incremental, because then they'll do it again, and they'll do it again. They want you on your knees, and this is why I keep saying to people, stop focusing on Biden or Trump or Starmer or bloody Sunak. They're just the gophers in a game. They've got no power. The power is through them, not from them. The power is ultimately with people, if we take that power back, through non-cooperation, that forces the politicians to act in certain ways, because the population will not have it any other way. And by the way, in this country alone, we're heading towards 70 million people. And how many politicians are there in Westminster? And add even all the gophers around them and the administrators and the shadow people. It's still a fraction of the population of Britain. Look at the population of America. How many are actually running America compared with the number of people there? They can only do it because we cooperate. It has to stop. And we have to stop giving our power away to the next chancer who turns up saying, I'm going to bring about change. Oh, they are. But not change that's good for you, change that's worse for you, because they're following an agenda that is meant to make it worse for you. So people have to, look at their own circumstances and think, okay, this is the outcome that's planned. How do I mitigate it from my point of view? And that's for each individual to decide in their circumstances.
Icke believes that if the West is fully taken over and silenced, this group will have no obstacles in achieving its ultimate goal, which could result in a dystopian world. In such a scenario, Anyone who opposes the group's ideas could face serious danger. To prevent this, Icke urges people to take action now by educating others and uniting against these plans. He believes that only by coming together can we resist this potential new world order and avoid a bleak future. For more Daily Dose Crypto news, check out these 2 awesome videos on your screen. Click now and we will see you on the next video.